As India gears up for the upcoming budget, a lot of expectations doing the rounds, and we have the tech sector that is looking at a transformative phase and are also aspiring for new benchmarks that can drive innovation and growth. Talking about the tech sector in India, it is huge. We are talking of the tech sector that is contributing to at least $250 billion in revenue. And when it comes to 90% of the Fortune 500 companies, all of them belong to Indian tech companies. They are customers of Indian tech companies. That's how huge they are. And what better way to kickstart this show, talking about budget expectations with domain experts from a place like Bengaluru, which is the Silicon Valley of India. I'm Pratibha Raman, and I have with me guests on the show, starting with Mr. Raghavendra Rao, who is a brand consultant in the tech space. And we also have startup founder, Mr. Venu Kundur. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have Bobby Reddy, angel investor. Madan Padki needs no introduction, president of TAI Bengaluru. And we also have Krupesh Bhatt, who's the CEO of SignDesk. Let's start the show with the first question to Mr. Raghavendra Rao, and the question is about talking of the growth rate in this sector. It has plummeted to around 3.8% as compared to 8.1% in the financial year 2023. So how do you think these numbers can be reversed, especially with the budget?
Thank you, Pratibha. With more youngsters entering the technology space, especially in Bangalore, one is that, the finance minister should look at giving the carrot to the youngsters. So the first increasing the slab, okay, which is still very old in that sense. So one is that, and also with after COVID, a lot of people are investing heavily on health insurance. Now that benefit hasn't gone actually down the last mile. And yet the discount or the saving which is given is to a maximum of 25,000 rupees, other than what the employers pay as an insurance. That also I think need to be up for the youngsters to jump the bandwagon, and also look at women. We keep talking about women empowerment. There was some waiver given to women in the early stages of this income tax, but that has now been pulled up, and now that is not available. So how do you lure more women to fall into this? I think that must be the first priority of the finance minister. Yeah.
I like the way that the moment you referred to youngsters, you were looking at me, so I totally feel super young now. But unfortunately, I'm not in the tech space, but the media space. But my next question is to Mr. Venu Kundur. You did mention about how infrastructure must be given a lot of boost, but talking of digital infrastructure as well, and how do you think the funding on this front or budget allocation on this front can help spur growth?
I strongly believe that that is the need of the hour, because as country we are saying that hey, we would be about 10 trillion economy, okay, by next 5 years. So if that's the plan, we need to have digital economy going at a very fast pace, and that can only be achieved with a lot of push that government can actually give, right? How do they incentivize the SMEs and down the hill the people who have not yet joined the bandwagon of digital infrastructure, push them, right? So today we see that a lot of consumer-led businesses are into it, but the B2B businesses are still catching up, right? So how do we push that? So incentivization is the key thing, right? Hey, if you use these softwares or technology, IoTs, AI kind of thing, hey, here is the incentives that we are going to link along with your income, right? So that's really going to get that desired push, right? That's what I strongly believe.
In fact, Mr. Venu Kundur deals with a startup that talks of a lot of logistics when it comes to delivering of packages and trucks that are on highways, is what I've understood.
Yes.
So it's easier driving on highways than on the city roads here.
Yes, absolutely. Drive is definitely easier. Yes.
Well, my next question is to Mr. Bobby Reddy. When it comes to the kind of incentives for investments, how do you think the kind of budget allocations should be on that front? Because talking of your industry, I think one of the key budget expectation is the fact that they want 1 lakh crore rupees in deep tech funds to drive the startup growth. What's your take?
Before that, I'd like to address the angel tax issue. I think the government should seriously look at that and how they can reduce this angel tax, because on one side you want to incentivize startups to come into thing, but then again you're taxing the angels. So this is kind of unfair. So I think the government should look at that deeply. And on one side, the government wants to incentivize startups, give them funds, but on the other side, you want to tax them. So also the tax on startups, they should give them a longer leeway to kind of become profitable. And then how do they, how does a startup come out of their losses, and how do they kind of reinforce themselves? I think the government should look at that. And coming back to, incentivizing thing, I think they should let the industry incentivize the startups and the founders. And the other thing is, taxes on ESOPs, I think is a crucial thing that the government should look at. Because otherwise it's not very lucrative for any person to take the ESOPs. It's not very viable. So the government should seriously look at that, I think is one of the big concerns and expectations we have from the budget.
Well, as a layman, I've always thought that, the tax slabs are always an issue only to do with, the common man here. But I never thought that it could actually be industry friendly. So my next question is to Mr. Madan Padki. How do you think that the tax slabs can be industry friendly, and especially with the tech sector? And also, do you think that global technology centers, the expansion of it, can also be one of the key factors in kind of making it industry friendly and at the same time driving growth?
Sure, thanks Pratibha. I'm just trying to take a macro view of the budget itself. For me, the 5 magic words that I would look for in across the budget would be youth, entrepreneurial skills, digital, job creators, and district level, right? Where I'm trying to arrive at, and I'll come to the question that you say, is that we see there's a massive opportunity, which is the demographic dividend that we have. But if you don't equip them with entrepreneurial skills, with the right relevant digital tools, especially with the DPI infrastructure that's being rolled out, and encourage them not to migrate out from their cities, but can each district itself become vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystems, right? And therefore, can we create jobs there? To me, is the macro picture that the government must focus on for the next, 25 years. If we do that, then the district digital economy grows, and there is the whole, the Viksit Bharat dream comes alive, not for just the metro dwellers, but for every youth in every district across the country. So in that context, how do you incentivize industries to engage with districts? What tax breaks can I get? There are already certain state government policies that will incentivize me to move from a Bangalore to a Dharwad or a Belgavi. Can we accelerate that to every other districts?
In fact, it's pretty interesting that you did talk about how districts should also kind of gain in this entire technological growth. But one of the recent, since I'm a journalist, I've been covering some of the recent developments here, and talking of the Ramnagar district in Karnataka. Aiming to rename that and bringing it into the Bangalore fold. I see many of them wanting to answer that. But aiming to bring that into the Bangalore fold. Do you think that that is going to be a boon or a bane when it comes to driving investments?
In fact, I would think, why only Ramnagara? Why can't we call Bidar Bangalore North? Right? So where I'm coming from, Pratibha, is that I think there must be a little Bangalore in every district. Like how there's a little India in Singapore, right? Where you go. So what I'm trying to say is, it's just not renaming it, right? It is taking the culture and the ethos of the ecosystem like a Bangalore and embedding that in every district. How do we make that happen? So can there be a little Bangalore in every district of Karnataka where a startup feels the same vibe?
My next question to Mr. Krupesh. How do you think the expansion of the tech industry can happen? Because more often than not, every third person is a techie, especially in Bengaluru as well as other cities that I've been to. Is this going to be a boon or a bane for a city like Bengaluru? Because nobody wants to be a doctor or an engineer anymore. Everybody wants to be a tech expert.
Yeah, I think, see, the startups and then tech companies come in different shapes and sizes, right? So definitely one size doesn't fit all. But if you look at the jobs created, MSMEs contribute about 62% of job creation in India compared to larger companies. So the government should definitely focus on smaller companies creating more jobs. So in that respect, there are two aspects, right? For the smaller startups, the problem is not really with funding or working capital. I'm talking about very small startups. where I think government should definitely reduce the compliance burden. So typically there'll be about 60, 70 kind of the compliance laws that are applicable even for a small startup. And when it comes to medium and the larger sized the startups, the problem is the working capital, right? Typically, especially if you are building in India and selling in India, your the revenue collection cycle is anywhere between 3 to 4 months. But then all your payments are due at the beginning of the month. So that is working capital and also the future R&D expenses, all that you need capital. I think the startups in that mid segment need help from the government with funding. When funding, I think we're not asking for government to give us subsidies or incentives or the free or tax holidays. I think what is required is some kind of the credit, right? The credit access, like based on maybe the number of employees you have employed, like how many jobs you are creating. Based on that, can government support those companies with a larger capital pool? Right now, actually, we have about 10,000, 15,000 crores of credit made available to startups, but then that is distributed through the PE and then VC funds. Again, that goes to larger companies. But when it comes to smaller and medium segment companies, based on the headcount, based on the size of your payroll, can government help us with with the working capital requirements? So that would help. I think basically, if government takes care of these two different the stages of startups, then I think it will create more jobs. I think we are definitely. There is no shortage of entrepreneurial skills in India. I think just to make a correction to like what you said, now it's not only that everybody wants to be employed in the tech space, but then they want to be entrepreneurs themselves, right? I mean, that's a good thing. I think probably with a little bit of help from government, I think it will go a long way.
In fact, the question stems from the fact that one of my very, very close friends, I'm also making this a very casual conversation, was employed just very recently into one of the global tech companies, and later there was a lot of attrition, a lot of layoffs, and she was also one of the victims of that. So do you think that that is definitely going to be one of the factors leading to the downfall of the tech sector, and how can that be corrected?
I think what gets reported in the media is mostly the layoffs and then what larger companies are doing. But then if you look at the smaller size of companies, I think people are not really downsizing, right? And the smaller startups are definitely not cutting. They're using this as an opportunity to reduce their cost and then bring efficiencies.
And it's all cyclical. This thing of layoffs and again getting things is all. But the thing that people have to look at is reskilling themselves, because technology keeps changing. You have to keep with the change. So I think that's one of the key things.
In fact, that's an interesting point. So when you talk about reskilling, how does artificial intelligence play a role? Because I see AI creeping into every industry possible. And how do you think that can be adapted into the tech industry? And how do you think the budget allocation on that front can help transform things tomorrow?
Interestingly, right, about 300 years ago, mathematics was considered as an esoteric art. There used to be people who were experts in abacus, and they were called abacus, and people went to them to kind of figure out their mathematical. But today, it is a common thing that is taught for everybody. And math for all started out several centuries ago, and now that's ubiquitous. I believe we are at a similar cusp in AI. It is now seen as an esoteric art or whatever, or a tech. Yeah. But I think the society has to use AI in every facet of life. So I would again look at it from a budget and the roadmap for India. How do you make AI for all a reality? Of course, there are several levels, right? What should a kid in a 4th grade not be told by the teachers that don't use ChatGPT, because they will use, but how do you really leverage a ChatGPT equivalent to learn faster, better? And that applies for everybody. So I think we should embrace AI as a society, figure out how do you take the conceptual thinking of AI to every school, every college, and every SME to leverage the power of AI, just like how we leverage the power of mathematics to build a better society and better business growth for all of us.
I think so we see two problems with the AI which the government can definitely help. One is, I think, where there is a severe shortage of GPUs. GPUs are typically these the big computing machines that would help you develop AI algorithms. So there is a shortage of that, and the second problem is it's super expensive. So if government can create the pool of GPU resources that could be distributed to startups and tech companies, then it would help us innovate the better, and then help us develop AI algorithms instead of using the chat GPTs are open source AI algorithms. I think there are a lot of companies who are developing something on their own, something specific to India. So I think a little push from the government will help.
I mean, as a layman, when it comes to AI, more often than not, I do not really look at the chat GPT as an app, because I feel that it is going to replace me sometime. So that's the threat that I have, and I personally do not want to open the app. What is your take for people like me?
It won't replace you, it will complement you.
Exactly.
Okay.
And as you said, in your earlier thing that AI is creeping. It is creeping, and I think we have enough time to catch that bandwagon, and India is at the cusp of that, and I think with the kind of knowledge base that is there in India and the kind of educated workforce that we have, it's the right time for India to really embrace AI.
You have something
Even
to
in
add?
communication, when we are building a brand, we do use AI, but as Bobby rightly said, the upskilling is not happening by the younger lot. Okay, they use this upskilling only for their personal interactions, but when it comes to professional involvement and engagement, they are taking a step back. They are saying, let the company pay for it.
I read about deep fakes. How do you think all of these can be curbed in terms of the government's help as well?
So it's like a knife, right? You can use it to do a surgery and murder somebody. So I think we need to balance it out. In the AI for All initiative, I would also envision that we need to be able to create awareness about information misuse, the abuse. So we should also create what we call as a large-scale information intelligence process, right? If I see a deep fake, and we see so much of cyber crimes happening today, right? How do I recognize that? Maybe that itself must be created as a skill.
In fact, talking about data and cybersecurity, where do you think the allocations can be in terms of, boosting that front to make sure that our data is safe?
So I think the government has a large role to play in this, in cybersecurity especially, because it's a very cost-intensive kind of a this thing. The government should set, in fact, you should have a regulator for that, I guess. Rather than regulating stuff that is not needed, they should have a regulator for cybercrime and cybersecurity. They should have a regulator, and they should make it very stringent. The punishment should be more stringent. And I think it's all a question of evolution. Evolution of the business, of the technology. Countermeasures will come, and I think the industry will find solutions to that. So I don't think it's that much of a concern now, yes, for India.
But yet the government, I would say, has not upgraded their back end when it comes to technology. As he rightly said, when you do these cyber frauds which are happening, and they are very expensive software in the back end. Only banks can afford, but then somebody has to approve it, right? So I think that is very, very important when it comes to checking the cyber crimes which are happening at large scale. Yeah.
Overall, when you talk about, say, cloud computing, AI, and data as well as cybersecurity, how do you think there needs to be, streamlining of frameworks as well as policies? What are your expectations on that front in terms of, strategizing the framework as well as designing the policies?
I think the DPDP, the Data Privacy and Protection Law, was enacted last year in the Parliament. I think the government is still in the process of appointing the regulator and then implementing the entire system, right? So I think that's still work in progress, but I think we need to speed that up. It covers the privacy, data protection, the cyber security, and also the cross-border the sharing of data, right? So for AI to take off, you need a large amount of data, and then unfortunately, most of the data now is sitting in the servers that are not even in India. So in that sense, I think with the DPDP, the law, it would help us when we start owning our own data, and then when we help startups and then tech companies to innovate using that data. So with that, I think the data privacy and then security, all those aspects can be addressed. Probably the regulator who is going to handle data protection is going to play a large role here, because this is an evolving subject, right?
In fact, I have one other question in the AI space. So when it comes to the in-demand skills gap, it stands at around 20%. How do you think that can be changed?
The challenge so far in the skill space is that we've kind of delinked it from the demand side of things, right? So there's a supply side, and we have taken a lot of skills-based approach. The uptake of that by the demand has been low. So I would again say that, listen, it is best left to the industry to figure out what skills to be taught. And instead of incentivized training agencies, and giving them money to skill, can you create some sort of a structure where you are actually working with the industries to say, listen, I will pay you to create the skills that you need, right? And you then take the absorption of whatever is required and you figure out what needs to be done on the market side. I think there is a tectonic shift that we need when we think of skills, because we got to think demand first and then work backwards to skills rather than the other way around.
40% of our graduates are unemployed.
Exactly.
That's a very dangerous figure, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it could lead to a civil war. We're at the cusp of that. So I think the government should really look at skilling. I think that's the single biggest thing, rather than you giving money or giving this thing, is how do you skill? Working with industry, and the best way is to work with industry. Yeah. There's no substitute for that. No amount of government, colleges won't help. You need to get people skilled and job-oriented kind of things where people can really be employed. That I think is the biggest.
I think we are running out of time, but then one last question. Any last thoughts that you would like to share when it comes to the union budget, so that this could be heard by the union government?
My take would be, there are a lot of PSUs, I was telling the team also, who are draining badly, and every budget, we end up paying X amount of money to just keep these guys alive. Shred the government, whatever power they have, give it to private players. They will establish it, they will do it better. I think that is the one thing I would say from my side.
Continue to have those investments that we have seen in the past at the similar pace that is required, okay, and like we come from logistic industry, we strongly believe that road, rail and sea has to be connected very well, right? So ports and modernization. So modernization, infrastructure, large money is required, right? So I believe that over $250 billion is what is required to just upgrade them. So we have to continue to have those investments.
So I'd like the government to come up with a national employment policy rather than education policy. I think, how do we get people employed? I think that's the single biggest factor. That if that is addressed, I think all the other things, investment, everything will follow. You just have to have people, because the whole world will be at our feet if we have people who are employable.
I think at a national level, it's time to put together a national district digital economy and entrepreneurship platform, where we take it on a mission mode to enable every district to achieve maybe $10 billion of digital economy by 2030, and take it on a mission mode, else drip feeding and starts and spurts of initiatives won't work. So we need a mission mode approach for entrepreneurship and digital economy.
I think one reform that is needed of the hour is the labor law reforms. I think the indirect taxation was standardized through GST. However, when it comes to labor laws, it is still state specific. So we have employees in different states, and then there's a huge cost involved with with the complying with the government laws. And if I may add one more, it is please fix the income tax portal. It is too slow, and then it's something. It should be a quick fix.
Thank you so much for this, and we'll have to wrap it, but yes, there are going to be challenges aplenty, be it the employability gap or be it the geopolitical tensions. But then when it comes to the tech center and the tech sector, I'm sure all of them are definitely going to fight it, adapt to this new mode, as well as embrace this and come back with a wonderful comeback in India. And I'm sure the budget allocations are also going to help them in this strive. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to our dear guests. And this is Pratibha Raman signing off for NDTV, along with my two very great camera persons, Govind as well as Kumar.